Hello, fellow curious creatives out there. This is Mike Kepka, the Curious Creative, and this is the Curious Creative Podcast. This is the podcast where we meet up with other creatives and marketing gurus using video to make a difference for their clients. We call this results-based video strategy, and everyone on the show is very well versed in making video content that really counts. I mean, we're talking here about real results, real returns for our clients who are investing in our work. Today, we're incredibly lucky to have with us Brooks Patton, coming to us from his home base in Anchorage, Alaska. He's the founder of Mother Wit, a creative video and strategy company that, as you guessed it, promises results for his clients using video strategy. He recently worked on a marketing campaign with Coca-Cola called Y300 and is also very, very well versed in solving problems for military and government contractors, and is in fact changing the game in the world of government contractor marketing. An incredible feat in a world not known for being forthcoming with data tracking and transparency when it comes to public information. Brooks, thanks so much for being on the show with me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on Curious Creative, Mike. It's awesome to be here.
You're listening to The Curious Creative with your host and video expert, Mike Kepka.
So I want to jump right into this. Usually we do a little more slow start, but today I'm so excited about what you've been doing with one of your main clients and how you have sort of rethought the problem they had for you and how you're getting people interested in what they offer. Can you name the clients and sort of talk about the process and what we're sort of talking about here?
Yeah, so the client that we're working with right now is one of our primaries. They're called Plexus. They're a mil sim company. They make military simulation software for every branch of the military, and that includes the commercial sector as well. We've been working with them now for 6 years almost. 6 years or 1 month, depending on whose brain you're occupying. They've recently come up against a rather, let's say, tenuous challenge. Their software costs about 6 to 7 figures per license to use. And the government just came out with software that does very, very similar things for free. They are obviously clearly, I mean, if you like going to the DMV as an experience, then yes, they should go to the government stuff for sure. But I don't think most people do. And I can tell you from personal experience, when I was in the military using sippers, it's a painful experience using any government software. So that was the first thing I said when I got that news, but they were still very concerned about budgets. Their prediction based off of this new software is that things may not go as well as they have. And they were going to cut the budget, actually. They were going to cut our contract entirely. And the conversation kind of came up. And we pulled a bit of a Hail Mary with them. It wasn't ill-informed. It was very informed, but it was way outside of their comfort zone. Government contracting clients, tend to use things like PowerPoints and Word documents to present work or to for their marketing. So you can imagine shifting their tone was quite the stretch, but it landed and yeah, it's going well. I wish I could do that again.
So tell me some of the tactics and like the challenge, like working with the client. I often have to describe, I often work with clients who think that sort of the obvious is the best way to get there. And it sounds like you had a strategy here that was a little bit outside the box. Tell me a little bit about like what the video you actually created did for the audience and how that drew people in.
Right. This was definitely outside the box. So when marketing in DoD or military or whatever, the defense sector, it's often very, very much feature-driven marketing. So what is the thing the widget does? How does it solve the problem? It's not the why. There's never a why. And there's never an emotional hook to anything that you see in those conferences or online or whatever. So our approach was, we need to draw attention to very real threats and make people a little nervous, frankly. And that comes off a little like manipulative, but we did weeks of research. I mean, this is all public-based information, nothing's secret, classified, or sensitive, but we did weeks of research on what it would look like if there was a nuclear war. What would start it? How would it go? How long would it take? And what would a modern war look like if the US had to engage a foreign adversary, say, for example, China? We took those threats and put them in a timeline, I guess, from beginning to end, basically made it in this video. So you are the driver. You have to make the decisions. You're up against some very formidable odds against an enemy who can use very cheaply made weapon systems to take out weapon systems that took you a decade to build and took hundreds of billions to make. This is all driving to is our approach was now to make an existential threat to these decision makers, the generals and policymakers in these fields, to make them aware of these threats that exist now, and to make them feel something when they watch this video, to help them act on it. So it was like the quintessential discovery content, basically. And
where did the video show? Where was the content distributed or displayed? And then what was the result? That's what we all want to know, right?
Right. So that I was actually just about to answer that question. It's what additional challenge to this is these aren't ads that you can run on traditional platforms. You're not going to run this on Facebook. They're being shown primarily in live environments. So think networking events or conferences, stuff like that. They need to be able to catch the attention of the person walking by or catch the attention of someone staying there for a presentation and keep it, which is challenging, super challenging. Everyone has flashing lights, but this flashing lights need to tell you something that makes you stop and look and think. The result of that was super positive. It got a lot of positive feed from the last conference they're at, and now they're going to use it to roll out the next part of their campaign.
So how was that outside the box? I mean, you basically evaluated the problem. I'm guessing that they had a superior product to what the government was offering for free, right? Otherwise, there wouldn't be any point to this. So you saw that they had something, you believed that it was superior, and then figured out who the audience was and how to get them there, right?
Right. This is out. So it's difficult, if you're not familiar with the environment, like to get this vibe across. But it's outside of the box in the fact that we are trying to capture people's attention using emotions rather than facts. So when you go see, say, a weapon system, it's going to tell you how far its range is, how fast it can go, what its deterrents are, but it's not going to say you need this weapon system to destroy the bad guy who's going to come destroy your family. You know what I'm saying? Like that emotional connection's not there in any marketing in that sector. So we're bringing the real world human existential threat vibe to that market, which is disruptive, frankly, which is exactly what we wanted.
And how is that different than just saying, hey, we offer a good product, right? I mean, I think that is what worked, is that you were kind of figuring out what the pain points were of the audience. Is that right? Like, oh my God, these people don't have enough training or need to be educated on this if it all goes bad. Is that kind of what you were thinking there? You said you created content that had a bit of a nerve factor, right? Or a bit of a scare tactic. I hate to say that kind of thing, but you created awareness to a problem that these people otherwise didn't know, right? Awareness content is one of the earliest baseline strategies that we're working on with ACDC stuff, right? So you let people know that there was a problem that they otherwise weren't completely aware of. Is that right?
The target audience they have, think generals and up. They're so high level, they're so big picture that they don't know the nuance of the modern battlefield. And in order to capture their attention enough to make them want to learn more, we had to make content that made them aware of a threat that they weren't aware of. That was the goal. It was to bring that awareness and to drive people to Plexus to learn the answer to the problem we just posed.
And so after these high level people watch this content, did they come asking questions to Plexus and say, how can you fix this for me? Or how can we be more prepared for what might happen? Is that essentially what happened?
They did. And I was lucky enough to be there at that conference. And I can't remember, I think he was the director of the Space Force Academy and Air Force Academy was there. And him and I had like a really interesting conversation after he watched that video where he was saying, this is the kind of thing we're trying to inform people who help fund the academy. They're not aware of these emerging threats. They need to know, and this would be super helpful for us to be able to give them this kind of education to like shock them into wanting to learn more and wanting to invest in the future of our warfighters.
Right. So this is the power of awareness strategy. This is your brain. You're shooting content out to sort of a broader audience, and then sort of finding those people that are interested in, so they can ask more questions. Now, do you have plans to sort of make the next level of content for them, for those people who need to be more convinced or have bought in and yet are looking for the next level of solution from this company? Or how is that going to go? What are your plans for Plexus in the future?
So we're going to kind of like atomize the current video that we just did for them. We called it ADAPT. It's the acronym. We're going to break it down into each potential threat. So say someone watches this video, they're interested, they want to learn more. If there's a particular threat that they're specifically worried about, say if you're in the Air Force and you're worried about unmanned squads of drones, we would have educational content for that specific weapon system. And we'd start talking about how Plexus helps you solve for those things. And then once they have that, we have footage or videos already made for all of the products that go deep into detail for all of their features and how they solve for very, very nuanced, specific problems that they would get right before they make their decision.
Amazing. So, and I think you had mentioned earlier on in this discussion what one conversion might be worth, but can you tell us what the KPI is, and then what the return is on potentially the return is on their investment? Like one single conversion for this company means a lot.
Millions. Like 40 million a year.
That's something else. And how are you able to then track that? Are you having conversations with the company about who actually signed on, or how are you going to use that to your advantage for your next client?
This is another very unique challenge that is going to be instrumental to the future of Mother Wit moving forward when we solve it. And that's how you track engagement in environments that are live. So not clicks. We're not going through data analytics like normal companies do. We have to find other solutions. And we think we have started to narrow down what that looks like. There's another company, I'm not going to name drop them yet because we haven't met with them or meeting with them next week. Essentially, they use heat mapping. So they use the not computer intelligence, but like artificial intelligence to heat map people who are in these booths. So where they stop, what they pay the most attention to, what they interact with the most. And we can use that data just like we'd use analytics, say from YouTube or Facebook or Google Ads, to start driving the content that works the best. We're also helping Plexus set up a system that allows them to track internally. So their BD team, their business development team, can start tracking these things and the progress they're making and what works and what doesn't work, what gets engagement and what doesn't get engagement. And we're going to use that just like we'd normally use in more traditional commercial campaigns analytics to drive our campaigns.
Fascinating. I mean, this sounds amazing. I can't wait to see what happens next with them. I hope you're able to share some of the stats with me, however you end up getting them at the end of the day. Tell me where you are. You're in Alaska, right? Tell me a little bit about your company, what you do, and then I want to know how you got started.
Yeah, sure. So I am in Anchorage, Alaska. In today's world, it doesn't really matter where you are, which is great, which is why I decided to stay here instead of going somewhere like LA. Mother Wit was started about 7 or 8 years ago now. I'm going to have to go back and check. It's been a blur since the beginning. We've kind of evolved as the years have progressed. We started as strictly an animation company, so 2D, 3D animation, and then we've slowly evolved over time to be, a little more mature as a company and start offering video strategies.
And how is video strategy different than what you've always been offering? I mean, you just said Mother Wit's been around for quite some time. So where's the pivot? Because that's what the Curious Creative is all about. It's this big pivot that a lot of us are doing. We're Brooks and I, audience, truth be told, are part of a core group here working on this results-based video strategy that is like blowing the way we did everything else. Is just doesn't make any sense anymore. It's like now we have a purpose for why we're creating content, where it's going, and most importantly that it's creating these results for our clients, right? So tell me why that's working for you or what your goals are there.
I think that, a lot of creative people start this way. I don't think I'm unique in any way, but when you start it, you're like, oh, I'm going to make the most high speed content that exists on the internet. Like I'm going to win awards and all this stuff. And as you go through the process of running a business and working with clients, you learn quickly that clients are almost always not looking for the highest quality. They're looking for results. They're trying to solve a problem. They're trying to make more sales. They're trying to educate, inform. And what we were providing didn't prove that we were doing any of those things. All we could say is like, look at this nice video. Don't you like it? It wasn't, hey, look at all the conversions we made for your business. Here's how much value we brought you this year. And just like you said, it's wild to me. Before this journey started, I had never really thought about this stuff. But now that I'm doing it, it's insane that I was ever doing it any other way. Because it's like, how was I ever proving my value? How did I win clients before? Like, it blows my mind. It's like, what did I sell them on? Because they don't really want the quality. They want the result of the work.
Yeah, I think for a lot of us, when we start off and we have a camera that suddenly does video, and like, I don't know about you, but I did not come from the filmmaker world, right? I didn't go to school for this. I went to school as a journalist. So I'm a storyteller first. All the gear and all the set life is something that I've learned after the fact. But I think the big thing that I had a really hard time early on was justifying my cost, right? I mean, how are you going to charge $1,000? How are you going to charge $20,000? How are you going to charge $500,000? And I think what we're working on is the answer, right? And it's easy to see how you could charge six figures for something when your return is, as you said 5 minutes ago, millions, right? Is that what we're saying? So like, what does $100,000 mean to somebody if you're making a return that's just astronomical for them, right? Tell me in your own words what that means.
Well, it's just a value-based proposition. What value am I providing exactly as a business? And, if you sell a video that's, say, you're making a car salesman a video and it's a one-off, say 10 grand or something for this video, where did that money go? What is it doing? Why did the client buy it? And what are you going to use in your case studies moving forward? It's not just going to be the way it looked. It's got to be the success of it. How much success did they see with that video? And, in terms of relationship building with clients, when you prove that your investment is worth hundreds of times, or that their investment is worth hundreds of times what they get back, like that's crazy. Like they're loyal now. They become your partner. It's way more than just like one-off.
Right, super powerful. I mean, I think what I'm really interested in doing as I go through this process is, I've said it in earlier podcasts, but have a legitimate seat at the table with the people that matter. And we're no longer the people that are like running that camera and they're doing something that seems superfluous. We're actually saying, this is why we want to do this, because we're going to get you what you're looking for, right? Whatever their KPI is. But I mean, that's superpower. And I don't know if you've ever sat in a room and you don't have any power in that discussion, but it is humiliating. And to be able to come to the table and show that your work speaks for itself because it's getting returns is just absolutely huge, right? Tell me, let's go back to the military stuff and the government contract thing. I think you have an idea. I think you have found a hole in the market that I can't wait to see how you fill, right? And maybe use sort of Plexus as the example for a bit of the case study, and then tell me why these entities could be doing so much better if they work with Brooks.
Before we do that, can I just touch on something really quick that you just said? So you're the first person who said that in a way that was like so perfectly articulated, like a feeling I've had my entire career that I've never been able to like quite put my finger on. You just nailed it. Like when you're in the room, are you a partner or are you a videographer? Because when you're the videographer, you're going to be put in a closet and told to eat your lunch. When you're a partner, you have decision-making power in the future of their business, which gives you more, quality, loyalty, everything. I just want to put a pin on that and to say how much I appreciate the way you put that, because you just put words to a feeling I've had for like my whole career.
Of course. Well, I mean, I think that we're, again, like-minded people, curious creatives, striving towards much of the same thing. So I think basically I've just said what I've said, and you have attached yourself to it as well. So bravo, Brooks. Tell me the next step. Where are we going with this? And tell me about that. Like I said, the hole in the market that I think that you're going to be able to fill in a way that other people can't.
So professionally, my professional upbringing was a little untraditional. I started in the Navy. I was also a photojournalist there. And even while I was in, felt like I was constantly pushing back on like, why aren't we doing things that look good or tell stories or whatever? And it was a losing battle, right? It all ends up being public relations in the end. But when I got out, I shifted gears. I went and I worked as a private contractor. I lived in Afghanistan for almost a year, making training content for the government there on behalf of a privately owned American company. And that kind of started piquing my interest on like what the possibilities are here for just content in general at this point. After that, I moved to Alaska and I switched gears again. And I started working in marketing, and that's when things really started coming together. So I started working at a marketing agency here and learned so much. I felt like it was that puzzle piece that I was always missing. And when I felt confident and secure in the stuff that I had learned and all my experience up until that point, I decided it's time to start approaching the military with content that is good, basically. I mean, that was my initial thought. It's turned into more now, but when you walk around conferences at, say, a DoD conference or something, and you're looking around, you're like, how do these people sell things? I don't understand. Like, they make these super high-end, incredibly complex, technically amazing, say, a weapon system or a training system, but their marketing looks like they just printed it out of Microsoft Word. It's wild. If anyone's gone to a store to buy wine, like, you don't buy the wine that has the worst looking label on it. You buy the wine that has the best looking label on it. Also, their communication is so poor, just in general. It's hyper vague. It uses nothing but military jargon. Unless you are in the military or work directly in that industry, you'll never know what, it's very unlikely that you'll know what they're talking about. So there's a communication area.
I mean, you're privy to that because you actually have a military experience personally. Right, but why is it you think they don't have the great comms or marketing, right? Is it people are advancing through the ranks with their military sense of being, or is it just they're short-sighted and they're working on this great tech and they just aren't putting the priority there? And then how are you going to fill that, right?
So this has been one of the biggest challenges that Mother Wit has had, is how do you approach companies who sell things based off of relationships? And this frustrates people sometimes in this industry, but the good old boys club is a very real thing here. It's who you know and the relationships that you build over the span of years. But times are changing. They've been changing, but they're changing like real fast now. And if they don't start getting with the program, they're going to start losing contracts. I mean, it's written on the wall. Anyone can see it. Their communications are poor, and if they're all relying on relationships, it's just not a good business strategy moving into a kind of a new realm of technology here and communication.
That's a whole different kind of return, or let's not lose the contracts we have. I mean, there's a lot to lose. There's like no such thing as a small government contract, from what I understand, right? Like, that could put a company out of business, I would imagine, if you lose a contract, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, there are so many companies that work in that sector, the private DoD sector, that have a client. They exist to serve a single client, to solve one problem. And if they lose that one relationship, if all their eggs are in that one basket, they're going to lose their business.
What else you got going besides Mother Wit? Are you working on some other things behind the scenes? Is there anything you can spill? I know there's some top secret stuff you're working on. And how is that related to what we've been talking about today?
We're building a new way to talk about ourselves. There's the struggle that we've had with Mother Wit when communicating what we do and who we are is we spent the last 7 to 8 years catering to everyone. And now we're really niching down, but we have existing clients who are not DoD, who are not military affiliated in any way. We're very much commercial, like the Coke example that you gave. We don't want to lose that or lose our relationship with them. So we're thinking of shifting and creating what we're calling Contest High Ground, which is kind of a sister company to Mother Wit that solely and specifically serves military, DoD, and aerospace companies. It speaks their language. It solves their problems. It is there just for them. When we introduce ourselves, it's much easier to say we're Contest High Ground than it is Mother Wit. If you can just picture a room full of old white men, when they ask me what Mother Wit means with cross eyes, I have to give them this whole spiel and whatever. There's a weird barrier there. And just like I would tell my clients, you have to speak to the person you're selling to.
Right.
We weren't doing that effectively to the targets we have. So we're shifting it a bit.
Well, that's branding. I mean, I think that regardless of what we call ourselves, I always tell people the hardest thing to do is name the band. And then once you start calling the band that name after a while, nobody cares. But I think what's important is that what's not changing is your approach to it, right? Or you're making this pivot, but we're just changing the skin so that people understand a little more easier, right? Is that what you're saying?
Essentially, yeah. I mean, we've moved to this new data-driven mindset, this philosophy of proving our worth, proving the ROI, KPI, everything. That's been really the secret sauce to our success of the last year, honestly.
Can you tell me a little bit about the stuff that we've been working on, AC/DC in general? Can you describe from your point of view, just sort of, real quick or high level? We've already talked about awareness content that you did so masterfully with Plexus. Then what's the next stage? We have consideration and decision. So where does that come into play in this sort of approach that we've been working on?
Sorry if this is too far left field, but I don't know if you've ever looked into it's called mode. It's a cell mode. It's very similar to what you're talking about. Okay. And I only bring it up because the example that I've used there is very appropriate for this. So if I'm a customer, or say I'm just me and I'm like, hey, I want to go backpacking this year. I have this thought, right? So I look up, hey, what's the best backpacking backpack? Or maybe even more high level, why should I go backpacking? If I'm a company like ROI, I'm going to provide you 10 best places to go backpacking. And it says there's no branding, there's no messaging for sales anyway. It's just, here are 10 great places to go backpacking. Thanks, ROI. I think I want to go hiking now. I need a backpack. Well, ROI provides a video that says, here are the top 10 pieces of equipment you need to go backpacking. Great. So now I have a list of the equipment you need. What's the best thing where do I go to find the best deal for backpacks? Well, I've been on the path through RAI. I've learned about what it is that I want to do. I have found the equipment that I need. Now it's time to make the decision of whether or not I'm going to buy the backpack. And at that point, I'm probably walking in the store and talking to a salesperson. It's to me, it's kind of like marketing to people's own curiosity and own interests and own needs, rather than forcing your message on someone. It's letting them discover on their own and make their own decisions, which is it's a way stronger connection to make.
Right. I mean, I think the first form there is creating something that's actually sort of interesting to watch, right? I think you had the top 10. I think of the campaigns that Yeti's done in the last 5 or 10 years. I'm sure you're aware, but it's they're little stories. There's these 5 to 8 minute stories. Who has time to do? We're not doing that on TV anymore, but now with streaming, YouTube, everything, we can see whenever we want, and you're just watching amazing, pretty pictures. And they'll put the product in there somewhere, right? That's the whole thing. Or at the end, they'll have a little slide. But I think they're creating something that is approaching a much broader audience, right? Mm-hmm. And then from there, that's when we can figure out who watched that stuff, right? And turn them onto the next layer of content.
Right.
hopefully by the time they've seen different videos fed to them 2 or 3 times, they are becoming not just an audience, but like dedicated fans who are definitely going to purchase whatever that client is offering, right? Well, this has been great, man. Do you have anything else to add? I always like to have my guests leave us with a golden nugget. Do you have anything for other curious creatives out there who are looking to do sort of what you're doing, or want to know how to get their start, or how to win it like you have? What do you have?
I do. My response is a little broad, but it feels topical and appropriate. So we didn't really get into it, but AI. There's a lot of anxiety about AI in our industry, and to be fair to other industries. But I would just like to throw a little bit of peace of mind out there. The programs and tools that we use to create our products have existed now for decades. At any point in the last few decades, clients could have chosen to learn the software, to buy the equipment, and make their own videos. They don't do that because what they're really purchasing is time. They can't commit time to learn the software, to learn the video, whatever, to produce the product. So the next time you're out there and you're feeling a little anxious, like AI is going to take my job, I promise you it won't. It is a tool that requires learning, just like the equipment that's existed now for decades. Last little tidbit I want to throw on the end of this is a thing that we're always going to be able to provide that AI generated content just can't, by the very nature of it. When you're creating something, every decision you make in that creative is driven by a lifetime of experiences and lessons learned. And that's just not a thing. It's an intuition that AI is just never going to have. And it's why I think our job is secure. Those two things make our job secure, in my opinion. Time savers, money makers, and we're the genuine article, as they say. We're authenticity.
Well, there you have it, folks. You just heard from Brooks Patton, video strategist and founder of Mother Wit, coming to us from Anchorage, Alaska. I'm Mike Kepka, the Curious Creative. I want to remind you to tune in next time to hear more from the conversation about a growing community of video strategists using video content to really move the needle for businesses around the world. See ya, creatives.
This is special.